Took me a little while to realize this, but finally I did, that exercise is not optional after cardiac event. It's not something to do if you feel like you have the time or the energy. Done right, movement, it's easily one of the most important things you can do for your heart. And done wrong, it can set you back. So today we're going to talk about the right kind of exercise for people over 50, what to do, what to avoid, and how I personally approach it after everything that my heart has been through. Now, a quick disclaimer before we go any further. I'm not a cardiologist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not prescribing anything here. This is my personal experience and my own personal research. If you've had a cardiac event, please work with your cardiologist and ideally a cardiac rehabilitation specialist before starting any kind of new exercise program. So that said, let's get into what actually worked for me. If you get value from this content, please hit the like button and let's get into it now. Here's the first thing you need to understand about exercise after 50. Your body has changed. And that's not a bad thing. It just means that you have to change your approach to different things. After 50, you start losing muscle mass, at a faster rate than you did when you were actively working to preserve it. Your recovery time between workouts is longer. Your joints have more, they have more wear and tear on them. Your cardiovascular system responds differently to intensity. If you've had a cardiac event on top of all of that, your heart needs to be treated as a priority, not an afterthought. The good news is that the human body is remarkably adaptable at any age that you're at. I've seen it in myself. After my double bypass, I had to essentially, start all over with exercise. I couldn't just jump back into what I used to do. I had to rebuild, and what I found out was you have to rebuild the right way. Slow, intentional, consistent. It actually got me in a better place after my surgery. That's not a small thing at all. We're sitting, for a second. A guy who had a double bypass in better physical shape now than before it happened. Diet played a huge role in that. Supplements played a role, but exercise, the right kind of exercise, was a critical piece of that puzzle. Before we go any further, subscribe to this channel right now if you haven't already. This is the third video in a series on heart health and healthy aging, and there's more coming. Drop a comment below and tell me what your current exercise situation looks like. Are you active? Are you getting started? Have you had a cardiac event and you're trying to figure out how to move safely again? I want to know. And share this video with someone over 50 who needs to hear this, because a lot of people in that position are either doing too much too soon or not doing anything at all out of fear. So let me tell you personally what I do right now, because I think the most useful thing I can give you is a real picture of what my routine actually looks like. Not some idealized program, but what a 67-year-old guy who had a double bypass actually does to keep his heart strong. I start most mornings and most days with, I like rebounding. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically jumping on a mini trampoline. And before you laugh, please hear me out, because rebounding is one of the most underrated forms of exercise there is. And I'm going to explain why in a minute. After rebounding, I do some isometric exercises. I'll do like wall sits or planks, and hold those for, anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute. Do several sets of them. And if you don't know what a wall sit is, that's just simply getting into the squatting position or the sitting position and leaning against a wall. That's all you do, and you just hold that position. And you do this. You build up gradually. You don't just start trying to do it for 5 minutes or something like that. You just keep building up. A plank is just, you're sort of in the push-up position, but your elbows and your hands are on the floor, but the rest of you is in the sit-up position, and you hold that for 30 seconds to a minute. And then again, if you can build on that and do it longer, then that's great too. Then another low impact thing I do is this walking. Walking is something I've never stopped doing since my bypass, and I don't plan to. It's steady, it's low impact, and done consistently. It's one of the most powerful things you can do for your cardiovascular system. That combination, rebounding, which also is good for your lymphatic system, but it also helps obviously with your blood flow, and blood flow is very important, especially after you've had an event. So rebounding, isometric strength work, and walking is the foundation of what I do. And I'm gonna break down a little bit more for you each one. Let's start with the isometric exercises, the wall sits and the planks. They're very, very good for anyone over 50. Isometric exercise means you're contracting your muscles without moving your joints. You're holding a position rather than doing repetitions. And there are several reasons why this works really well for our demographic. First, there's no impact. A wall sit doesn't pound your knees. A plank doesn't stress your shoulders, joints, or anything like that, the way that a push-up might do. You're building strength without, repetitive stress on your joints. Second, you control the intensity completely. You decide how long you hold. If you can hold a wall sit for 10 seconds, start with that. And then build from there, like I was saying earlier. And then just get up to a point where, you can hold it for as long as you want. It's completely scalable. It's up to you. Third, and this is interesting, there's actually research suggesting that isometric exercises can have a positive effect on blood pressure over time. For people managing cardiovascular health, that's not a small thing. Now, here's the important caveat, and I want you to hear this clearly. When you're doing a wall sit or a plank, do not hold your breath. Breathe steadily throughout the hold. Holding your breath during the isometric exercise creates a spike in blood pressure called the Valsalva maneuver. I think that's how they say it. And that's not something we want to be doing with cardiac history. And steady breathing throughout every single rep, every single hold. So don't hold your breath. That's too much. I do wall sits and planks, several times a week. I built the duration of it gradually. And I found this style of training has built real functional strength, the kind that makes everyday life easier without putting my heart or my joints under unnecessary stress. Quick break. If you've been watching this series from the beginning, diet first, then supplements, now exercise. You're building a real framework for your cardiovascular health. Subscribe if you want to get every one of these videos as it comes out. Share this with someone who needs it, and leave a comment below. Tell me if you've ever tried rebounding or isometric exercises. I want to hear from you. Now let's talk about rebounding. Because this one I'm genuinely enthusiastic about, and I don't think enough people in my age group really know about it. A rebounder is a small mini trampoline, personal trampoline, typically about 3 feet in diameter, that you use indoors. You don't have to be jumping high or doing tricks. Most of what I do is gentle bouncing. I barely leave the surface of the trampoline, and even the gentle movement, delivers real benefit. Here's what makes rebounding special. Every time you bounce, even gently, your body goes through a cycle of weightlessness and increased gravitational load. That rhythmic change stimulates your lymphatic system, which is your body's internal drainage and immune system. Unlike your cardiovascular system, your lymphatic system has no pump. It relies on movement to circulate. Rebounding is one of the most effective ways to get that lymphatic fluid moving. For cardiovascular health specifically, rebounding gets your heart rate up gently and consistently without the joint impact of jogging or running. It improves circulation. It works your legs, your core, your balance all at the same time. And because you're on a soft surface with the give to it, it's very easy on your knees, your hips, your ankles. I start in the mornings with about 5 minutes of warm up, and then I do it after every meal. A lot of people will walk after a meal, but I prefer, which is fine too, but I find I enjoy the rebounding more. And this will also help you with your glucose levels when you move after eating for at least 10 to 15 minutes. So I rebound at least 3 times a day. If you're over 50 and you haven't looked into rebounding, I genuinely encourage you to look into it. It's one of the best investments I've made in my life, in my daily routine and my life. Now let's talk about what to avoid. Because I've seen people come out of a cardiac event or just out of years of inactivity and make mistakes that set them back significantly. The first mistake is doing too much too soon. I understand the motivation. You've had this wake-up call. You're fired up to get your health back, but your heart and your muscular skeletal system needs time to adapt. Jumping intensely into something too quickly can cause a lot of problems, and you may end up back in the hospital. The second mistake is ignoring warning signs. If you're exercising and you feel chest pain, pressure, dizziness, unusual shortness of breath, or heart palpitations, stop. Don't push it. Sit down, rest. If the symptoms don't pass quickly, call for help. I know that sounds obvious, but I feel the need to say that. The third mistake is holding your breath during effort. I mentioned this with isometrics, but it applies everywhere. Holding your breath while exerting yourself spikes your blood pressure in a way that's hard on the heart. So breathe out of effort. Breathe in on the recovery. Make it a habit. The fourth mistake is skipping warm-up and cool-down. After 50, your body needs more time to transition out of those time periods. So, how do you ease back in after a cardiac event, or if you're even sedentary for a long time? Here's how I would approach it. Week 1 and 2, just walk 10 to 20 minutes a day at a comfortable pace. That's it. Don't add anything else. Just establish the habit and let your body remember what consistent movement feels like. Weeks 3 and 4, add gentle rebounding if you have access to a rebounder. Start with 5 minutes, very gentle rebounding. Barely leave the surface. Just get used to the movement. Add some basic isometric holds, a wall sit for 10 seconds, a plank for 10 seconds, nothing that makes you strain or hold your breath. Month 2, extend your walks, extend your rebounding, extend the wall sits, increase your hold time on them. Pay attention to how your body responds. From there, build gradually, add a little more each week, and never let your ego push you faster than you're ready. The goal isn't to be impressive. The goal is to be consistent. 10 minutes of rebounding and a couple of wall sits every morning beats, this heroic gym session, where you go in there and, try to bust a gut. But small, consistent daily effort is what changes your health over time. That's what I've learned. That's what I live by. If this video has helped you, I want you to do 3 things. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on what's coming next. Leave a comment below and tell me what you're starting from. What does your exercise life look like right now? Have you tried rebounding? Have you done wall sits or planks? I want to hear from you. And share this video with someone over 50 who needs a realistic, no-nonsense approach to exercise. Not a fitness influencer, telling them to crush it. Just a real person sharing what actually works. Diet, supplements, exercise. That's the foundation we've been building on in this series. And I'm not done. There's more coming on sleep, on stress, on specific topics, maybe specific supplements, specific foods. So make sure you subscribe. And if you want to go back and watch the first video in this series on diet, because everything really does start there. The link's in the description below, and I'll see you in the next one.